What is going on, everybody? If you're clicking on this video, you're most likely trying to find the next Kyren Williams off of the waiver wire, and that is exactly what I'm going to be giving you guys in this video today. I'll be going over the top waiver wire ads you need for the short term if you want players that are going to put up points now, and more long-term players to pick up off the waivers and stash for a real season-long winning player. So if you guys are new, just make sure to be subscribed so you don't fall behind on all of this information, but you guys know me and I absolutely hate wasting people's time in these videos. So the very first player we need to be adding off of the waiver wire is going to be Romeo Doubs, and I'm going to go over this very quickly because in my mind there's absolutely no way he should be rostered in just over 50% of leagues. This should be 100 at this point. And last week's performance cements this take. He saw 13 targets last week and he's leading the team in routes run, and he's realistically going to be the second or third option in this offense behind Christian Watson and Aaron Jones for targets. Now he's not going to keep up this 15 plus fantasy points per game stretch, but if he's available in your waiver wire, 100,000% take advantage of him now, especially while Luke Musgrave is dealing with a concussion. He's leading the team in targets per route run, and he just had two back-to-back 10 target games. He's an easy wide receiver 3 moving forward. But looking at the next guy we need to be adding off our waiver wire, and this is a bit more of a short-term play, that's going to be Tyler Boyd. Now obviously I have to start this off by saying T. Higgins is dealing with a hamstring injury that will put him out a couple weeks, so that makes Tyler Boyd the number 2 option behind Jamar Chase. But what really makes this a good add off the waiver wires this week is that the Bengals run a top-heavy offense. They get all of their stars like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Mixon involved, and they don't really put the targets anywhere else outside of the stars. Well, now Boyd falls into that T. Higgins role, and he's not playing, so that frees up 10 targets. We've seen in previous years when T. Higgins or Jamar Chase is out, Tyler Boyd does tend to carry more of those target share numbers of those top guys, and that just makes his boom potential so much higher. The only drawback to this waiver ad is that the team is not looking great. Joe Burrow has not been playing how we've expected him to be. I'm blaming this on the calf injury. Others might say he's washed, but in my opinion, this isn't a season-long worry. But either way, he is a guy we need to be squeezing value out of while we still can when T. Higgins isn't playing. But moving down to the next guy, that is a great waiver wire ad and could really be a valuable stash later down the line of the season. I'm sure you've heard him all over YouTube and TikTok by now, but we got to be picking up Michael Wilson. He's quietly been putting up a pretty decent target share. He's averaged about 4 or 5 targets a game, and that's while he's only playing 70% of the snaps. Now those numbers are a little bit skewed because he started the season off with a low snap share and low target number, and as the season has been progressing, he's seeing more and more volume. But I want to preface this by saying by no means is he a guy we need to be starting this week. The Cardinals offense does still suck until Kyler Murray comes back at least, but we also have to note that the Cardinals have had one of the toughest schedules so far this season. While Hollywood Brown is looking like the wide receiver 1, clearly his hidden stats really aren't that different from Michael Wilson in terms of usage and routes run on those snaps. But the Cardinals wide receivers have a really easy fantasy football playoff schedule, so if you can grab on your bench now and stash him for when Kyler Murray comes around and when the fantasy playoffs start, you could really be setting yourself up for success. But the next guy we need to be looking at on this list to pick up off waivers, and a guy that I am loving a lot, is Jake Ferguson, especially if you need a tight end. He came out here last week and tied CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks for the most routes run on the team. He was clearly getting involved early and often, and we can see that with his consistent target share. He's quietly averaging 6 targets a game and absolutely owns the red zone role alongside Tony Pollard. These are the 2 guys that Dak trusts in the end zone, and trust me, touchdowns will come, but having that upside and floor is going to be really valuable. The Cowboys have just been blowing out a whole bunch of teams they're playing, so it's capping the upside of all of these players, including Jake Ferguson on the offense. But honestly, that's a good thing that it's happening early because it's keeping these guys' value lower so we can go ahead and get them at a discount. But over the past few weeks of the season, he's top 5 in pretty much every single tight end counting stat you can think of, and I can realistically put him as a top 7 tight end for the rest of the year, so get your hands on him while you can. But as we all know, bye weeks are coming up. We have 4 teams on the bye. We're missing 2 games, so if your quarterback is on the bye week, we're going to go ahead and pick up CJ Stroud. He's a great option if you need a fill-in, and also if your QB isn't on bye but you just want another one, he's a great option. He's probably not going to be on the waivers very much longer. And the dude is solid. He's averaging just under 20 fantasy points a game, and I've had him in these waiver ad videos I think since week 1 or 2. He's had 6 passing touchdowns on the year and averaging 300 yards a game in the air, and he hasn't had a single interception. He gets a decent matchup this week against the Atlanta Falcons, who aren't the toughest defense on fantasy quarterbacks, but he's easily a low-end QB1, and that value should not be on your waiver wire. He's got a lot of young receiving options on his team, and they're only going to be more consistent as the offense progresses and the season gets going. But if he's not available on your waivers anymore, consider grabbing Sam Howell. This is a guy that got absolutely shut out against the Buffalo Bills. They didn't even score a touchdown. He had 4 interceptions, but then he bounces back the next week against the Philadelphia defense, having almost 300 passing yards and a touchdown. He is still young and figuring this offense out, but they get a great matchup against the Bears, who are one of the fantasy point friendly defenses in the league. But he's got a whole bunch of receiving options, something you love to see for young quarterbacks, but the only drawback is that he doesn't have the best offensive line, but there's not much more you can ask for a waiver quarterback. But he does carry a good amount of upside. He's 9th in passing attempts on the season, and he does have sneaky rushing upside too. Going back to the tight ends, if you need one of those still, Zach Ertz is a great pickup, and I've been been talking about this for weeks. This Cardinals offense is not the best. It's going to have up and down weeks all of the time, but Zach Ertz is one of those guys that can stay consistent throughout all of that mess. If you don't have him yet, please go ahead and do it now. He's averaging 7 targets on the year, and he's had multiple double-digit target weeks. And the main reason he's so valuable, especially in PPR leagues, probably only in PPR leagues, is that he is a consistent target hog. This offense does not like to pass downfield too much. They run a whole lot of dump offs and checkdowns, and that is exactly where Zach Ertz is utilized. He might only be averaging 5 or 6 receptions a game, but only 40 yards on those catches. But again, if you're getting a consistent target share and catching a good amount of passes, for the tight end position at least, it doesn't really matter how many yards you're getting after the catch. He's not super flashy or special. He's probably not going to have like a 30-point game, but he is going to finish as a top 10 tight end this year, and they get a great matchup against the Bengals this week, who again are a really easy defense for fantasy tight end. So grab him before it's too late, because his roster percentage slowly keeps going up and up and up and up. I also quickly do want to mention Chuba Hubbard, another guy that's been getting a lot of buzz on the waiver wire videos around the space recently. He outsnapped Miles Sanders this week and saw more usage, but Sanders is not being phased out. I don't want you guys to look at this game and think he's a bust and he's never going to produce and Chuba Hubbard's going to overtake him in the offense, so we're selling Sanders for a bag of chips and a couple batteries. No, he's still dealing with a groin injury, and that is the sole reason Chuba Hubbard is getting more usage than him. So I wouldn't really rush to grab Chuba Hubbard off of the waivers. I don't think he's going to necessarily be startable unless Sanders continues to deal with a groin injury, which is possible. But the only reason I see you grab Chuba is if you're a Miles Sanders rosterer. But really quick, you guys know I love to give you guys some defenses to stream off of the waivers if you guys do need one this week, and the Commanders is one that I really love adding. The Commanders' strengths and weaknesses really match up well with the Bears' weaknesses and strengths. The Commanders have a great defensive line, and the offensive line for the Bears is absolutely atrocious. I'm expecting a whole bunch of sacks and turnovers for Justin Fields. His defensive line is one of the best in pressure rate, and their secondary isn't the worst. But then again, the Bears don't really have many receiving options to burn them, so it's a win-win. But I also want to be picking up the Lions if you need to stream another team, because they get the Panthers, who have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and outside of the offensive line, the team is just not good or not efficient in general. The Colts is another defense I'm also liking, because they get a matchup against the Texans, who again don't have the best offensive line, and Ryan Tannehill looks like he's playing one of the worst seasons he's ever had. It's on pace for the most interceptions in a season for him, and he could produce a lot of turnovers. But that's going to finish off this video for the top waiver wire ads this week, but make sure to have your post notifications on, because I'm dropping a video about the players you don't want to be adding off your waiver wire tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in that video tomorrow.